So I'm Nancy Strobel. I am the Director of Elementary Education, Teaching and Learning, Instructional Leadership. And one of the things that I get to do is work with our littlest learners. And so today I'm going to be talking a little bit about PEAK, which is our Early Entrance to Kindergarten program. I also have my friend Curtis here, who is helping to monitor the chat and doing all the technical things behind the scenes so that I can do lots of talking. I'm going to go through my presentation, and then at the end, we're going to have plenty of time for questions. So if you have a question, you can put it in the chat and we will get to it. I've just got this short presentation to start with. So let's go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. So typically the Washington state law and our school board policy say that kids have to be at least 5 years old on or before August 31st to enroll in kindergarten. What we know is that sometimes kids just barely miss that cutoff of August 31st, and they're really ready for kindergarten, and waiting a whole year longer is not always in their best interest. So PEAK is an opportunity for kids with that birth date between September 1 and September 30th to be considered for early entrance to kindergarten if they meet certain requirements. Thank you. Go ahead and move to the next slide. So in order to qualify for PEAK, a child has to live within the Puyallup School District boundaries, and a child must turn 5 years old between September 1 and September 30th. And then if kids meet both of those requirements, the next thing is that they need to demonstrate advanced social emotional skills, fine and gross motor skills, and pre-academic skills. So if you haven't been to kindergarten for a while, you might wonder, what does kindergarten look like? Kindergarten is a full day program for all of our students. Typically there are about 18 to 22 kids in a classroom, and there is one teacher. Kindergarten is academically rigorous, so kids are really learning academic skills, also social emotional skills in kindergarten. It isn't just a place for play, although there's plenty of play in kindergarten too. And kids become increasingly independent throughout the school year. So they start out needing lots of guidance, but by the end of the school year, they're very, very independent. Next slide, thank you. So as you're thinking about whether PEAK is the best choice for your kiddo, I want you to think about some things like your child will be the youngest kid in the class, as much as a year younger than other students. And I want you to think about that, not just in the here and now when they're starting kindergarten, but I want you to think about how that plays out their whole entire life. So that means when they're in high school, they will be the youngest kid learning to drive. Their friends will all be driving. They will be likely 17 years old if they go to college right out of high school. So there are some considerations like that. This is a decision that we make early on, but it really has a lifetime impact for kids. They're always going to be younger than their peers. The other thing we know is that some kids become stressed or anxious if the expectations exceed their developmental capabilities. So a lot of kids learn academic skills before they start, and they might know all their letters and numbers. They might even be reading. But if they don't have the social emotional skills, if they don't have the friendship skills, all of those kinds of things, they might become anxious or stressed if they're not confident. So you know your child best, you know if that describes your child or not, but it's something to keep in mind as you think about this option. Next, please. So research tells us that a child's social emotional development is actually a bigger predictor of early learning success than their academic skills, their family background, experiences that they've had. The most important thing is their social emotional skills, their social development. So we know that learning is a social process, and important skills that kids need when they come into school are being able to make friends and keep friends, being able to identify their own emotions and label their emotions, being able to regulate their emotions. So of course, all little kids get upset, and they have lots of different strategies for dealing with that as they get older, as they get closer to kindergarten age. They have more skills to cope. So as a 2-year-old, they might throw a giant tantrum in the middle of Target. As they're getting closer to school age, you're probably seeing that less and less, and they have other skills for regulating their emotions and calming down by themselves without harming themselves or others. Next, please. So in order for us to decide if a child has all of those skills that we just talked about, motor skills, language skills, self-help skills, social development, all of those things, we go through a selection process. And there are sort of two big chunks to that. The first part is it's a survey that we would send you that you would fill out as the parent. Also, if your child goes to preschool or daycare, you would ask the teacher to fill that out. And so we need our kids who are coming into kindergarten early to be able to score significantly above their chronological age in all of those areas in order to be approved for peak. And as I just started talking about, that first part is the interest form you'll do online. After that, we will send you an application packet, including some questionnaires. A couple of things that I want you to know about those first two things. One is my assistant who manages the online interest form actually flew out to Maui this morning and forgot to leave me the link. So the interest form will not be on our website until tonight or tomorrow. So it's not there right now. The second piece is also due to her trip to Maui, which I would love it if we could all just fly to Maui and have her take care of us there, but unfortunately, I can't make that happen for any of us. So she will also be sending out the application. So if you if you submit your interest form tomorrow, just know that she just left today, so she'll be over a week out. So don't worry if you haven't heard back from her immediately. She'll have you on the list, and eventually we'll get an application packet to you. So completed questionnaires have to be received in our office, paper copies no later than April 28th. Some people like to hand deliver them. You can mail them, whatever works for you. Directions will all be in the packet. And once we review those questionnaires, we'll score them. And if the questionnaires demonstrate that the child is in the above average range, then you'll be asked to schedule an assessment time for phase 2. So let's look at the next slide, please. So we will do assessments probably in May or June. And here are some things to know about the assessments. Families are responsible for transporting their child to and from the assessment. We have qualified school personnel, so our teachers and paraeducators are specially trained in working with young children and in administering this assessment. We will actually have your child in a separate location from you, probably down the hall or one classroom over, something like that. But the reason for that is because we know that when kids start kindergarten, they're going to be independent. We really need to see how children behave without mom or dad or grandma, grandpa, whoever their family is in the room. We know some kids can be super shy if a parent is in the room, and then the minute the parent leaves, they're just full of energy and ready to roll. And some kids are the opposite. They're super confident with a family member there, but when they're by themselves, they kind of go within their shells. So that's important for us to see how the child does independently. So we will go through the assessment, and then after June 30th, the assessment committee, the selection committee, will review all of the information, the questionnaires, the assessment data, and we will determine if there's clear evidence that the child demonstrates readiness for kindergarten in all of those areas. Next slide, please. So what if my child doesn't qualify for PEAK? Well, we only test kids for PEAK one time. So we don't go back and do retesting. If there are some extraordinary circumstances that you think could have impacted the validity of the test, you can file an appeal within 10 days, and we can talk more about that if you're in that situation. It's also important to know that only about between 5 to 15% of children who apply for early entrance are accepted. And we know that we want to make sure that kids are ready for kindergarten and that they are successful in kindergarten. And for the majority of kids, 80 to 95% of kids are absolutely fine, and in fact benefit from being in their regular same grade as their age. We just have a very small group of kids who end up qualifying, who demonstrate exceptional skills in all areas. So again, we want to make sure our kids are ready for kindergarten. What we don't want is for kids to have a start and have it just be a failure for them. We want to make sure they're ready. So another thing that we do is when kids are accepted, we want to make sure that they're developmentally ready for school. So when they start in school, for the first 4 weeks, the school team, the teacher and the counselor, other people who are involved with kids will monitor your child's progress. And then if the child is struggling, the school support team will work with you. They'll pull together. It's a common thing that we do with kids who are struggling in all kinds of areas. But the school support team is usually, it's the teacher, it's the counselor, it might be the principal, it might be teachers from other grade levels. But if the student support team meets with you and your child is really, really exceptionally struggling, they might recommend that you take your child out and start again the next year. So I can tell you last year was our first year with PEAK early entrance, and we selected just 3 kids to go on to kindergarten. And because we were so rigorous in that selection process up front, all 3 of those kids are thriving in kindergarten, and in fact are in some cases leading the class. So that is our priority, is for kids to be happy and healthy and learning. And we're going to do whatever we can to make that happen. Next, please. So our timeline looks like this. We're accepting online interest using the PEAK interest form through April 14th. And then April 28th, all of the screening questionnaires are due. So remember, that's when you do the online form. We will send you the packet. All of the questionnaires need to be back in this office no later than April 28th. Many parents like to just get them completed quickly, so certainly you can turn them in early, but April 28th is the deadline. And then by May 19th, we will notify families if their child is eligible to move on to the next level of assessment. In May or June, we will schedule assessments for those kids who qualify. And then after June 30th, we will notify families if their child qualifies for early entrance to kindergarten. And then prior to September 1, if your child has been accepted, you will need to go to your neighborhood school and register for kindergarten. Or actually, I guess you can do that online too, but we'll get you all that information if we end up there. All right, and I'm Nancy Strobel. I am the director who works with the PEAK process. So my email is there, my phone number is there. You can reach out for more information. If we'll do question and answer next, but if you're at home tomorrow evening and you think, oh, I should have asked Nancy this thing, just shoot me an email or give me a call. Happy to help. And Chris Wilkinson is my assistant, and she handles all of the paperwork and the details and all of that stuff. So she is also very anxious to help with anything she can. So we are your two contact people. And I think that's it. Curtis, do we have any questions?
Yes, there's one. Where can they find the PEAK form link once it's posted?
It will be on the Puyallup School District website. It will be under early learning and then early entrance to kindergarten. And if you have any difficulty finding that, again, just shoot me an email and I will send the link to you. What other questions do you have?
There's another question. Does the committee explain in the denial correspondence as to why the child did not qualify?
We don't typically do that. However, if you're wondering, we can absolutely set up a time to meet and talk through that for sure. Great questions.
And doesn't look like there's any other questions coming in right now. If anybody would like to ask a question, oh, there's another one that just came in. Do you have any learning resources for the parent to see if it's worthwhile for their child to apply for this program?
Well, I think you can, on our website, there's some information about kindergarten readiness skills, so you can look through that. I think really you want to think about, like I said, not just those academic pieces. Kids know letters and numbers, and that is super exciting, and we love it when they come in with those things. But how does your child do with other children? How do they get along with others? Can they make friends easily and keep friends? Are they able to regulate their emotions? Are they able to complete a task? How independent are they? Like our kindergartners get their own lunch and use the bathroom on their own. So of course, some kids need a little help with accessing things at the beginning, but kids who are ready for kindergarten are becoming more and more independent. So you want to think about how will your child do as one of 18 kids with one adult who might not be able to attend to their needs immediately. Those are some things to think about.
Okay. And we've got another question. Can you give some examples of what may be on the test so that they can have a guideline on what their children may need to prep for the test?
Yep. So there isn't really a way to prep for the test because it's not teaching or it's not assessing discrete skills. What it's doing is looking at what the kid can do, how the kid communicates, how the kid uses motor skills or accesses different things, and compares that to other kids their age. So what we're looking for is kids who are above their age level in all those areas.
And we have another question. You talked about the considerations about starting a child early. However, are there any considerations to have them start a year later? My son's birthday is on September 1st, and I want a different view to weigh out the options.
Mhm. Yes, some families absolutely decide to start their kid a little later, and you know your child best, right? I'm thinking of a child once who had a early September birthday, who was super confident in her own little setting, but when she would go to daycare in an unfamiliar place, she would get really uncertain. And her family decided to not start her early. And it was really the best decision for her. She was a year later much more confident. One thing about older kids who are a little bit older but versus a little bit younger is a lot of times they feel more confident. They're more able to be leaders in their classroom. So again, you know your child best. And absolutely many families start their child later rather than earlier.
Um, it looks like that's all the questions.
All right.
Oh, wait, here's one more. Oh, it's just someone saying thank you for the host in the meeting. It's been informative.
You're welcome. So again, you can reach out to me if you have more questions. I'm happy to talk with you about your child. If you have any questions about the process, you can contact me, you can contact Chris, and yep, just reach out to us, whatever you need. Regardless of when your child starts kindergarten, we want to make sure your child has a great experience, because kindergarten is really, really special. And it's our kickoff for school. So we want it to be a great year for kids. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you, Curtis, for your help.
Yep, have a good night.